Dirty Birds, what's up? And welcome to another edition of Falcons Final Whistle presented by Zaxby's. I'm your host, Will McFadden, joined as always by Tori McElhaney and Terrin Waack. And we've got a little bit of catching up to do on today's podcast. The weekend dominated by the Matthew Judon and Justin Simmons acquisitions. So today we're going to touch on the preseason game against Baltimore and then kind of touch on Monday's practice, any news that has kind of cropped up in there. So Terrin, you wrote the game recap for Saturday against Baltimore. What was your biggest takeaway from the game?
How many people didn't play? That's what I led with even. And your girl took roll with her binoculars, checking people off. I feel like I was a teacher in a different life with my little notes and checking.
Why'd you first buy your binoculars?
No, don't throw me under the bus like this.
Wait, what's the story?
Bird watching.
That's adorable. What's your favorite bird to watch?
That's sweet.
My grandpa and I would bird watch, and he had a bird dictionary. No. I couldn't name a single bird, but it was big for him.
See, that's a beautiful, lovely story.
So when I got to break those out from little Terrin, who couldn't see over this table, I was like, okay, now they're for football.
Now you exclusively watch
Don't lie, you can
Falcons.
barely fit over the table anyways. You're small.
Just getting thrown under the bus.
Small bean.
Right.
All right, so your bird watching binoculars.
My bird watching binoculars clocked that 37 players were not dressed, which is a lot. That means 53, #math, were dressed. So it's kind of like a backup 53-man roster out there. I don't know that it was necessarily a surprise. I think people were most surprised that Michael Penix Jr. didn't play, which I know we'll get to. But when it came to how Miami went with 3 major injuries, I don't think they wanted to risk that again. And now I'm eating my own words that preseason games play the starters. And
everyone,
maybe not
first.
I don't know how I feel about Michael Penix Jr. not playing.
Yeah,
but we can get into that.
Yeah,
I don't know now. Right now.
Let's jump right in because that was the prevailing topic of conversation. Immediately, when that game started, versus and then again continued after the game ended. It's something still being talked about today, and
understandably
it's Monday.
so.
Right. I get it. I really do. But wanted to give Raheem Morris the opportunity to respond because a lot of people are like, what the heck is happening? You got Michael Penix Jr. with the underlying foundation that he won't play for 4 to 5 years because Kirk Cousins, in theory, is playing very, very well. So you don't need to put Michael Penix out there too soon. Why would you not play him in the preseason? Why would you not give him those reps? Why would you not give him, as they say, the live bullets? Well, Raheem Morris, when I asked him about it, he was kind of like, we feel like we saw enough of what he could do and how he could operate in joint practices in Miami that those 5 series that he was able to get in that first preseason game. And also, he made mention of the way that they run practice and feeling as though they put a lot on his plate and what he's been able to do and how he's been able to get the ball out and how he's been able to manage the offense, even as a game manager, that they've taken note of, and that
scrimmage.
The upcoming scrimmage, which is happening on Wednesday, which I'm really excited about because I even asked about that today in Raheem's press conference. I was like, you keep talking about this scrimmage and it being a good opportunity to see some more quote unquote live stuff from Michael Penix. What is the scrimmage going to look like? And it really does feel like they're going to try and make it as game day like as possible.
There's a halftime.
There's a halftime.
There's a performance.
Yeah, who's going to be the Terrin?
Absolutely not.
It's all about mitigating the injuries. That is what Raheem has said over and over again, where in preseason games, there's just maybe a little bit too much outside of his control injury-wise for him to feel comfortable. And so I think that, look, again, I understand the notion of saying he's a rookie. This is when rookies are supposed to play. Braylon Trice was a rookie. I think that they were going to count on Braylon Trice to play a role this season. They are counting on Michael Penix to play a role this season. He is, I believe, going to be your backup quarterback. I have seen enough from him to feel that he should jump Taylor Heineke on that depth chart. Whether or not he will, not my call, but personally, I really liked what I saw from Michael Penix. So did kind of the NFL Twitter analyst world at large, Chase Daniel, co-host of Scoop City with Diane Rossini. Don't know why I plugged that podcast, but there you go.
Random.
But he gave a nice 15-minute breakdown on YouTube. Everybody has kind of said, hey, this is really awesome stuff that Michael Penix was doing. So if you're Raheem Morris, your job is not just to think about the upside. Sure, the upside is playing your rookie quarterback. Everything goes fine. He continues to develop and you see new things and he sees new things, more importantly. Yeah. But it's also his job to like think about the downside and the risk. And the downside is in a meaningless football game when you can give the exact same looks in a practice in a controlled environment, he goes out there and the worst case happens. And now you are, sure, maybe not down a starter because Kirk is the starter, but you're down a contingency plan that you thought very highly of.
I don't know. I get both sides. I get the critics and I also get the supporters of this idea because say the worst case does happen. Has Michael truly had enough live reps to slide in naturally? That's where everyone's kind of like, no.
My thing though is like, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like my thing is we've seen quarterbacks go out and perform with a lot less than what Michael Penix has had.
Yeah,
that's
I'm just
true.
saying I see both sides. Like,
y'all know how I feel about the preseason. I will die on the hill that I hate the preseason.
Yeah, I just don't know how much it can
secret.
Prepare you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what does it matter if he's going out there against... There's not a right or wrong decision
here.
No, there isn't.
You're danged if you do, danged if you don't.
It's all opinion-based.
Exactly. And that's what's so tough about it because you see... both sides.
Every coach has different philosophies as well.
Exactly.
Even within one
You saw Patrick Mahomes play.
Right, yeah.
A lot.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can have this conversation all day long and go back and forth and do the pros and cons of it. At the end of the day, Raheem Morris is in charge of this team. He made the call. He made the decision, along with collective input from the entire coaching staff, front office, et cetera, et cetera. If he didn't want to play Michael Penix, then we live with the repercussions of that if those repercussions come.
And that was a 13-12 loss. The repercussions.
Right.
I don't believe that.
Well, no, I don't think it's a direct correlation,
score.
But it's a quick
That's such a
that's what happened.
Score, 13
We're done.
to 12. That's insane to me.
Absolutely.
It was almost a comeback. I was ready to scrap my whole lead and be like, actually, they won.
Yeah, this is gonna be a feisty team, just taking every single game down to the goal line in the fourth quarter. That's what we're
really not.
That's how it goes, though.
Talking about feisty, real quick. I do want to add. I know that a lot got lost in the sauce with the Michael Penix conversation and the fact that you aren't like there are a lot of guys who played who, in all honesty, are really trying to make a 53-man roster, but maybe and probably won't. And hopefully you hope that they fall and get to other teams or practice squad, et cetera, et cetera. But I will say this. I thought the defensive line grouping with Rukaroro, Brandon Dorless, James Smith-Williams, and... who was the
Was Contavious Street out there? Harris?
Damone Harris. That's who it was. It was Damone Harris. That foursome. I really liked what I saw from them. I really thought that
it's going to be the hardest group to cut down, I think, on the roster.
It really is. And as we're getting closer and closer to 53-man roster, like there are defensive linemen who I truly feel have made a case to be on this 53-man roster.
It's going to be 50% defensive linemen.
I'm just going to keep defensive linemen. And honestly, something that I go back to, and I believe this was Terry Fontenot that said this, he was like, when it comes to putting a 53-man roster together, and maybe it was even Raheem who said this, he was like, it's okay to have a surplus of talented, important players in one position group. And as I'm sitting here looking at this defensive line, particularly the guys on the interior, I'm kind of like, they can help you. Why would you not keep them on the roster? They are, I would say, if you're looking at the best athletes of the top 53 athletes on this 90-man squad right now, there's a lot of them that are defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, that are going to be important when you're talking about the rotation of what Jimmy Lake is trying to do up front.
That's true. But y'all are the main advocates for why this is going to be a hard group to keep a lot of because of special teams. The way that the rules have changed, I think you're going to see like it is less conducive to those big bodies, and especially this kind of 3-4 type of body where it's not a bunch of like Brian Burns, right? It's not a bunch of Arnold Ebiketis. It's Zach Harrison put on 20 pounds, you know? So like as we're looking at an Eddie Goldman or a Contavious Street or a Damone Harris, like it's just a little bit about like what all can you do, and I think that they have been amazing this preseason. That's just another factor in the mix, I think, as you are contemplating the best 53.
My response to that, though, I'm sorry, but my response to that is that
your rebuttal.
You still have, like, you're talking about speed and kind of the need for speed with this dynamic kickoff rule. You have that at your linebacker level. Really and truly, you do.
That's fair. But I think they're only going to keep like 4 inside linebackers.
Which is fine. But I also think that you have Lorenzo Carter, who I know they're getting he's getting a lot of reps in that dynamic kickoff role. But the thing is like, you also have a bunch of DBs that I think are pretty feisty that can get after it.
You had Kadarius Hodge, guys like that.
I feel like you have a good contingency of guys who can feel the role of the speed and the length and kind of the thump that you need for the dynamic kickoff. But still, you have room for some of these bigger dudes that are going to help you in run support, you know?
For sure. We now go live to Terrin for her thoughts.
I mean, that is a conversation I wish I could be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Not in the wall, on the wall for, between Marquise Williams and Raheem Morris or whoever he has to talk to make that case. Like, these are the guys I want from defense available for special teams. Like, I wonder how much give and take they're going to give there because kickoff is going to be so different. I mean, right now it's been very vanilla and they admit to that, but I wonder how much things will change and how much it will impact the game come the regular season and how tricky things can get with how creative special teams coordinators get.
I am so under the impression that we get to week 4 or week 5 and things look drastically different.
Yeah.
And then we get to week 10 and 11, things look drastically different again.
Well, you were talking about like defensive players kicking the ball, and I'm like, let's do it.
Right. This was something that when we were down in Miami, just watching Good Morning Football, like randomly in the hotel room, and Peter Schrager was just like, I've talked to some, I think he brought up the Jets and Quincy Williams specifically being like, he can kick the ball like 60 yards. So maybe they toy around with the idea of him kicking off. And then you've got an 11th defender. I was talking to Younghoe Koo after practice today, kind of asking him about like, does he notice a difference in how he's being asked to slot into the line after kicking? He, kind of didn't really give an answer on that. So I think it's not too different in terms of like the execution of it for him. But that's definitely going to be a big wrinkle. And the first team to really kind of figure out an advantage on a third of the game, people say a third of the game, it's probably more like a fifth of the game, I feel like.
It's more than it was.
But now it's going to be more than it was.
Right. So I'm curious, you bring up Younghoe Koo, and I know that if you follow me on Twitter, people
were distraught that he missed 3 field goals.
People were mad at me because I was like, let's not freak out. But then people were like, no, we're freaking out. So, Will, you talked to Younghoe after practice. I'm curious, what did he say about those 3 misses and what level of concern did he have? Yeah,
he said it was just kind of an alignment issue for him. So
they all went left.
Yeah, the fact that they were all very similar misses, I was kind of like, did you notice anything technique-wise when you went back to watch the film? Was there anything with like the turf and the weather and kind of the atmosphere that was? He just said, no, it was kind of just an alignment thing. And in his process, he was just kind of not maybe lined up correctly or what have you. So he knows way more about what all of that stuff means. I don't think he wanted to maybe elaborate like too much on why he was missing, but it does feel like it is something that he's able to easily identify. And it felt like that in the moment, right? Because I would just have to imagine, like if I go up to the golf course and I'm at the driving range and I'm just like spraying my drives left and right, and then I'm hitting one short and then I'm absolutely getting under one and like sending it straight up in the air, I'm not going to know what's going on. But like if I am consistently hitting them to the left and just hooking all of them, that's a little bit easier to identify and then correct than just, again, spraying it all over the place.
And here's your fun stat, the one that matters in this context. In 78 career regular season games, Younghoe Koo has only had 3 games in which he missed more than 1 field goal attempt, and it was never more than 2.
Yeah.
He's never had more than 2 misses in a regular season game, and guess what? That's when it matters.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about
everyone. Calm down.
Like if he's going to get it out of his system, honestly, do it
now.
Do it in the second preseason game. Today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle is brought to you by Zaxby's. And after a long game, when I'm tired and I need to refuel, I turn to Zaxby's. Their marinated, hand-breaded, fried to perfection chicken fingers, they hit the spot every time. Get yours with seasoned crinkle fries, a nice drink, and whichever of their 12 signature sauces you're feeling at the moment. But it always hits just right. So next time you need to refuel, go get yourself some Zaxby's. let's go ahead and pivot to today's practice, though. I was not out there for a ton of it. I was working on some planning stuff in the back end, so going to rely on Torin and Tori to...
Tori
and Terrin. God, this is
Sorry.
killing me, honestly. It's like, I do it every time now. Torin is just what I'm going to call the two of you now.
No, we go by TNT.
We do go by TNT.
Come on
That's
now.
cool. How have I never heard about that until right now?
Because I got booted from the office.
Can we get a...
We used to share the office and called it TNT.
Can we get like a dynamite explosion underneath that when you guys... Okay, so anyway, what'd you guys see out of practice today, Tori?
So, not a lot. I'll be completely honest because of the way that they were running practice. They were going... I hate it when they do this.
Big dudes in the way. Big dudes in the way.
For those listening or watching at home, they do this every so often where they always change the direction that they're going, what field they're on for, I guess, grass purposes. Unsure. I don't know why. Maybe I'll ask.
That probably is
we can't
part of
see.
it.
Yeah,
it's so we can't see.
Right, yeah.
You ever see the like championships at Wimbledon and it's just like bare dirt where they're running?
I guarantee you that's it. But anywho, so they were going where we're allowed to stand in one like end zone.
They were the opposite.
They were going the other way, and the whole team was standing in between us and the play happening. So it was really difficult to see a lot today. But what I will say is I thought that I was really pleased with the energy that I saw today. I felt like the energy last week was so there. That was something that every single day, it was like, especially with the DBs and the receivers, it was like every single day it was guys clashing, going against guys. That's
why I love that they went long on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Because it almost felt like, even in the aftermath of kind of Miami and then like the injuries, which put a damper on the beginning of the week, the fact that he sensed like these guys are ready to like get after it today, and then they've kept Wednesday going long. I love that.
Well, even Matthew Judon today, it's his first practice out there, and he wasn't going. He's probably going about 50%. They're really easing him and Justin Simmons in because they've only been here for literally like a day. So, but he even said, he was like, it did not feel like a day 20 practice of training camp over the preseason. It felt like a day, like first day of pads type of level of energy and excitement. There was one play that I really, really liked. I believe it was a nickel blitz with D. Alford. And it was the first team defense was going against the second team offense, which has kind of been par for the course.
The non-Mamba period.
The non-Mamba. Yeah,
period.
Mamba, for those listening, the Mamba period is 1s versus 1s. The non-Mamba periods are 2s versus 1s.
What's Mambo number 5?
Great question.
I was literally just thinking that song in my head.
Nickel Blitz. It was a play, and D. Alford just came completely like untouched. And it was basically a safety. I mean, I'm pretty sure they called it a safety in that moment. And D. Alford was pumped. He like ran around, was going down to where the defensive sideline was, and does like a full like back tuck, standing back tuck. And
heck yeah, I love that.
So that's what happened on that play. Because you were in the right side of the end zone. I was in the left side, and the play happened on the left.
Yeah.
So it was like mad traffic, mad big bodies in the way that I didn't see. We just called it an incomplete, but it was a safety.
Yeah, it was technically the defense was like acting like it was a safety, and
we couldn't see anything.
D was flipping through the air. It was a really fun moment. But I thought that even in like one-on-ones and everything you saw, Jesse Bates had one of the best like PBUs in a one-on-one in coverage versus Kyle Pitts. It was truly one of those instinctual plays that you've come to know with Jesse. He wasn't even turned looking at the ball. He was just reading the body language of Kyle Pitts. And as soon as Kyle goes up to make the catch, Jesse puts his hand right there. Breaks up the pass.
I've been saying it for years. Jesse Bates is aces as long as it's not against Charlie Warner.
There you go.
The man is just locked down.
For years.
This has been the point.
Scholars have maintained.
Scholars have maintained. But no, I thought, and then there was a really good one-on-one period where it was AJ Terrell and Drake London going up against each other. Drake wanted the pass interference call. AJ did not. Raw was kind of giving it to him a little bit. It was just. It's good to see this like really healthy level of competition.
Yeah.
And both sides making plays.
Oh, for sure. It wasn't like, I don't think it was as exciting as some other practices. There was the energy and whatnot, but like you had those standout moments like D. Alford's play. There were 2 interceptions.
Let's talk about Antonio Hamilton.
Yes. Number 33, interception of Kirk Cousins. Ball's picked. Antonio goes running, and you know who else goes running? Kirk Cousins.
Like full dead sprint.
I was like, oh gosh.
They ran past, like they were on the complete other side. I would say probably on the 30-yard line going into the other sideline. And the whole team
is a 60-yard run.
Well, the whole team was standing probably at like the 40, around the 50. Antonio Hamilton picks him off, runs through those guys, and you just see Kirk hauling.
His arms were pumping.
They were pumping. He was getting
track star running after the baton.
And it was one of those moments where he didn't catch Antonio Hamilton. No. And Antonio Hamilton did hit him with the peace sign and the Deion Sanders like step. But it was so I've not seen to see that from Kirk.
He looked like me in 4th grade when I got out of my 5-minute timeout to start recess or whatever, and then the teacher was like, "Go join him playing soccer."
That's
and
a
I just
very specific thing, Will.
Yeah.
How often were you in timeout?
I don't want to talk about that. I don't have to answer.
You made me talk about bird watching.
Kirk was like mad at himself for throwing an interception, I'm sure, and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna hunt this guy down. He didn't get there, but it was the E for effort, Kirk.
Everyone was looking at each other with wide eyes.
What do you think
dropped,
Raheem Morris was like thinking in that moment?
Stop. So whatever you're doing, stop.
I bet he was like, Antonio, you need to stop. Like, just everybody stop.
And meanwhile, Kirk's like, this is what you get for not letting me play in the preseason.
But I love
that moment made up for it in my mind. I'm not even kidding. I turned to the ESPN writer and I was like, you know what? After that, I no longer want to see him in a preseason game.
He's good.
Yeah,
that's fine. That was full-on effort right there.
You see what you need to see, and that's where, and we've got an interview with Kay Adams of Up and Adams going tomorrow, so plug for that. But that's kind of when I was talking to Kay and just telling her that, like, Kirk is taking every single practice almost at a game speed. And I kind of wish he wouldn't literally play like it's a game in a moment like that.
Yeah.
But that's indicative of just like how seriously he's taking it, and also how much he knows that it's like the onus is on him, I think, to get ready for week 1.
Yep.
Because again, like, it's kind of out of his control as to whether or not he will suit up in the preseason. So he's got to do whatever he can and the things he can control to get ready to go.
I will say this just to kind of move the conversation along. Another big part of practice today was the fact that we got to see Justin Simmons and Matthew Judon in full Falcons practice garb, the Guardian caps, all of the 9 yards today, and we got to talk to them after practice for a little bit. And hearing from those guys, I recommend everybody go and watch those press conferences or read the stories that are going to be up on AtlantaFalcons.com from Terrin and I. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversations with both of those guys because it really set the tone and you understood kind of how the Falcons are positioning themselves, how they're pitching themselves, the work that's being done from the front office to the coaching staff to the players. Like Matthew Judon said, this locker room is stable. Justin Simmons said this is a place that we were waiting, like this is what we were waiting for, to get a call from a team like the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, it was fascinating conversations with those guys that I know I walked away from being like, that right there is the most indicative point that you're, the most noticeable point that you're going to have about the changes in culture and what is happening in the building and how it's seen and viewed from the outside looking in.
For sure. I know I was only in there for Justin Simmons because you're handling the Matthew Judon story. But the way he spoke about joining the team but not like taking control as the veteran, like the really desired free safety or free agent safety and whatnot. Like he's here, like I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, and I'll put my input in when I think it's fit. But there's nothing I really want to change. I'm just here to add to it. And I just think for someone who was so highly, for lack of a better word, recruited in the past few weeks, to not come in being like, well, I got my pick of the litter, essentially it spoke volumes. And I think the conversation he had with Jesse Bates at the Pro Bowl, coming full circle, which is like what I lead my story with, spoiler, how at the Pro Bowl, he's like, how are things? And Jesse, all he could say was, I hope things go in the right direction. Because this is right after the season. That's in February, after they went 7-9, after the coaching change. Raheem was in, but only for like 5-6 days at that point.
It's very early.
Right.
Yeah.
Not like no full coaching staff, hardly at all.
Exactly.
No idea of Kirk being here, and we know their relationship and how it's developed.
Exactly.
Exactly. So we all said exactly. But so much has happened. And then he said he followed up with Jesse, thank you. I almost said Kirk. Jesse at that dinner that they had last week, and he's like, this is right. And that was the end of it. And it's just like a full circle moment where like things were rocky, I guess. Like an unknown. It was a massive unknown. And now he's like, no questions asked. This is it. This is it. And he's like, all right, where's the paper?
But it takes players like that to build that culture, right? And that's where I think you've seen such intentionality, especially from the front office, of kind of like the makeup of the guys that you're choosing to reward with contracts or bring into your locker room for maybe short-term
no one has an ego.
deals. Right. It's got to be. And like, I've been thinking a lot about Calais Campbell over the last weekend, just because he is,
I'm curious why.
He reminds me of these two guys, right? Like he is somebody who is late in his career, is looking for on-field success. If you're able to stand out from the crowd in your pitch to a player like that, who has seen as much in this league as like literally anybody, then that means something. And so the fact that they're able to make a pitch like that to Justin Simmons, who again is like very well respected in this league, still playing at a high level, has kind of his pick of whichever teams I think are courting him. And we know Matthew Judon had kind of his pick between Chicago and Atlanta, it's been reported. So like it is resonating with these players, I guess is all I'll say, that Atlanta is becoming a little bit of a destination for these guys.
And something else that's come up with both of them is talking already, here we are in August, but talking about the postseason. And Justin Simmons talked so much about that. And he was like, how much he wants it and how much there was like this hunger. And he saw this same hunger in when he's talking to Grady Jarrett, AJ Terrell, Jesse Bates, Raheem, Terry. Like there is this same consistent level of hunger. And I know, I feel like I can say this, but one of my good friends who I very respected in the league, and she covered Simmons in Denver for a little bit, and she texted me right when things became official, and she was like, I'm rooting for you guys because I'm rooting for Justin Simmons to make it to the playoffs. And now having met him, having spoke to him, and to hear his conviction, to also hear the conviction of Matthew Judon as well, and the chip on the shoulder that he has about coming back after that injury, which he almost got like fully choked up in the middle of the press conference talking about how hard that this past year has been for him. These players are coming in and they believe in what has been established here. And I think that matters. Like that matters when you're talking, like when we're talking to Kay Adams about what the national perspective is about this organization. These guys are coming from the national perspective of this team, and they chose to be here. Yeah, if reports are correct.
And I think anybody can relate to that in their own workplace, right? When you're part of a team where you feel like you look around, like I feel the same way about you two. Like when I look over and I'm like, all right, Terrin is crushing this practice. Like she's got all the notes down and she's not missing a single thing. And then I look at what Tori is just like thinking about and observe it. Like it makes you perform a little bit better when you look around at the people next to you and you see them also performing at a high level. So again, I think it'll have ripple effects for the whole roster. I think Kirk Cousins has. I think Jesse Bates last year certainly did. Guys like Caden Ellis. So like it's real. Let's wrap up with Camp Champ today. Terrin, we'll start with you. Again, I wasn't really out there, so I'll bow out and let you two duke it out between you two. But
okay, I'm going to go with Clark Phillips for the umpteenth time, I feel like. He had another interception. We didn't get around to that one, but this is the perfect time to plug it because he picked off Kirk Cousins. Again, it might have been in the melee. I'm 99% sure he caught it, but who knows if he was out of bounds because it was so far away. But still, we're going to give it a pick.
We're going to give it to him.
So he just continues to have a really strong camp. Consistency is paying off for him. So that's my guy.
My camp champ for the day is Jesse Bates III. And I say this because I think that Jesse really embodies kind of where the Falcons are right now. And I say that because he played such an integral role in kind of selling Justin Simmons on being here. And Justin Simmons talked a lot about wanting to play with the caliber of player that Jessie Bates is. And how much, like Justin Simmons said, my calling card is I want to make the people around me better. That's the same thing that Jessie Bates has said time and time again. It's the same thing that Jerry Gray has said about Jessie Bates time and time again. And I just feel like I see that day in and day out at practice. Jessie Bates makes the people around him better. And I know I talked earlier about the play that he had against Kyle Pitts in the end zone in one-on-ones. But like Jessie Bates continually makes plays, even when you're thinking that he's not involved in it. He is, because of the position that he puts himself in, because of the way that he leads this defense, especially on the back end. So for that reason, he's my camp champ for today, because I couldn't think about the moves that were made with this defense and not think about Jessie Bates' role in this, because these players wanted to come to Atlanta and be a part of this defense because, yes, they saw what Jessie Bates did last year coming to Atlanta and being a part of this defense.
When Justin Simmons was talking highly about Jessie Bates, specifically about like watching film and whatnot, I almost wanted to be like, are you going to watch with Kirk too?
Right.
Because Jessie had that whole thing where he was watching one-on-one with Kirk. And that would be another place I'd love to be a fly on the wall, is like if it's Kirk, Justin, and Jessie all watching film together.
Yeah.
That'd be so fun.
The ideas would be percolating.
Exactly.
Wow, percolating.
I love that word.
I think that like the comparison between safety and quarterback is so obvious, but it's because like Jessie does such a good job of being like, okay, no, middle field closed on this one. So you've got to go somewhere else here. And I know that I'm going to put them in position and let them know, hey, it's coming to y'all. Like I'm funneling this out here in the same way that a defensive lineman funnels the run back on the inside. Like a really good safety is just almost able to kind of like dictate again where the ball is going to go. And that's where like Jessie is at that level. I think Justin is at that level, having both of them back there when you can rotate either one of them back and they have that feel for it is just going to be so awesome.
Will pick.
Oh boy.
I know. I see if we give it to Clark, he's going to run away with this thing. So the showrunner in me is like, let's string this out until the very end. So I'm going to go with Jessie. What's up? That was a horrible high five.
Yeah.
That was a way
That
better
one
high
sounded
five.
like I hurt.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Plosives. All right, that will do it for today's episode of Falcons Final Whistle, presented by Zaxby's. For Tori, McElhaney, and Terrin Waack, I am your host, Will McFadden. We will see you guys tomorrow.